the heart of medieval Bohemia, long before Luther nailed his theses or Calvin wrote his doctrine, the earth trembled beneath the boots of peasants and priests who refused to kneel. The world called it heresy. They called it truth. It was the early 15th century, and the fires of faith were already burning across Europe. At its center stood a man, Jan Hus, a preacher from Prague, who dared to say that God did not need gold, that the church had lost its soul, and that salvation was not the property of Rome. His sermons filled the Bethlehem chapel with thousands. His words struck like thunder against the marble of corruption. "Truth conquers all," he said, and for that truth he was condemned. In 1415, under the promise of safe passage, Hus was arrested at the Council of Constance. They offered him life if he would recant. He refused. As the flames rose around him, he sang psalms until his voice turned to ash. From those ashes, a war was born. Bohemia erupted. Priests who had blessed his death now found their churches stormed. In Prague, mobs tore down altars gilded with the blood of the poor. The followers of Hus took the chalice, the cup of communion, as their symbol, declaring that both bread and wine belonged to all believers, not just priests. They called themselves the Hussites, and beneath that symbol, peasants, nobles, and scholars united in defiance of the entire Catholic world. The Pope called for crusade. Armies marched on Bohemia from all directions, Germany, Hungary, Austria, confident that heretics would scatter like dust before their banners. But they were wrong. Led by a one-eyed general named Jan Hus, the Hussites transformed faith into warfare. He was a veteran of countless battles, hardened, devout, and merciless. Under his command, they forged a new kind of army, one not of knights, but of farmers and craftsmen. Their weapon was not the sword, but the wagon. The wagon fort, or Wagenburg, was Žižka's genius. Wooden carts chained together into a moving fortress, armed with primitive cannons and crossbows. From behind them, peasants rained fire and iron upon armored crusaders who could not break through. They fought singing hymns, their banners painted with the chalice, and time after time the armies of Europe fell. In 1420, at the Battle of Witkow Hill, Žižka's men, vastly outnumbered, defeated the Crusaders of Sigismund, the same emperor who had condemned Hus. When the sun rose over the battlefield, the blood of nobles and priests stained the soil of Bohemia, and the world knew these heretics would not be crushed. For over a decade, the Crusades came and broke upon Bohemia like waves against rock. The Hussites held firm, a society reborn in war, governed by preachers and warriors, bound by scripture and blood. But within their defiance grew division. Some, the Utraquists, sought moderation, communion for all, but peace with Rome. Others, the Taborites, demanded revolution, a kingdom of God on earth, without kings, without priests, without greed. They burned relics, destroyed monasteries, and declared that Christ himself was their only law. It was faith turned to flame. But even fire consumes itself. After Žižka's death, his followers continued his cause, yet the unity of the Hussites fractured. When the final crusade came in 1431, the invaders faced an army that no longer fought for survival alone, but for belief. The Pope's legates, terrified by the discipline and conviction they saw, chose not to fight. They negotiated. The Compact of Basel in 1436 gave Bohemia limited freedom of worship, the first legal heresy in Europe. But peace is never pure. Soon after, the Hussites turned on one another. The radical Taborites were crushed by their own brothers at the Battle of Lipany, a tragedy that ended the dream of a perfect, godly republic. Yet their fire did not die. A century later, when Martin Luther challenged Rome, he would write, "We are all Hussites," and did not know it. What began in Bohemia as a cry for truth had become the spark of the Reformation. The chalice that Hus lifted in defiance still glimmered, passed from hand to hand, century after century across the storm of history. Today, the hills of Bohemia are quiet, their battlefields green with grass, their wagon ruts long erased. But if you stand on Wietkopf Hill and listen to the wind, it still carries the echoes of hymns sung in the smoke of burning towns, songs of peasants who faced the might of empires and did not kneel. They fought not for conquest, but for conscience, not for wealth, but for the right to drink from the same chalice as kings. And in that defiance lies the eternal heartbeat of rebellion, the whisper that truth, once spoken, can burn down the world and still rise from the ashes singing. The Hussites were not the first to dream of freedom, but they were among the first to die for it. Their story is the prelude to every revolution that followed, the fire and the chalice forever intertwined.